Arcade1up has given us 3 variants for Marvel superheroes: a 3/4 scale cabinet, a head-to-head cocktail cabinet, and a Countercade. This review is the Marvel superheroes Countercade. Comes with 4 games. Looking at the actual cabinet, the comic strip, Arcade1up nailed it. The 6-button layout, the artwork. One of the Countercades, in my opinion, that have the best game lineup. Those original 2-player Countercades are a steal. And also a steal is the fact that this Countercade was $99 at Target. So how does that compare in 2023? Is it worth it? Is it worth paying $99 for the Marvel superheroes Countercade? From Arcade1up. But here's the secret. There's a game on here that's impossible to find and only a couple different options on where to play it. Let's take a look at that control panel. You see that comic strip, just a classic iconic look, something you're going to see from the actual arcade along with that marquee. Now we'll take this out in a second. This is an unboxing, but I want to ask you something during this review. In 2023, is this Countercade worth $99 to $149.99? And I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert now. Yes, it is, simply because of one game, the Punisher. There's only 2 products from Arcade1up that have the Punisher on their title, and that's the Marvel Superheroes Countercade and the Marvel vs. Capcom head-to-head cocktail cabinet. This is a game we're not going to see in the future, so if you are interested in this game, I recommend the cheapest way to pick it up is the Marvel Superheroes Countercade. Again, a great description just from the back of the box. You do see it is 16 inches high. That's from top to bottom, and that monitor is 8x8, the 4 games included: Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, The Punisher, and Marvel vs. Capcom. You really can't go wrong with any of the 2-player Countercades from Arcade1up, whether that's Marvel Superheroes, NBA Jam, Mortal Kombat 2, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And unfortunately, some of those Countercades are hard to find, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but Marvel Superheroes is still available, especially at Target, offering probably the best promotions and deals. Definitely check it out. If you do see this in a store or show up online, I really recommend picking this up. Now let's open it up. The best thing about an Arcade1up Countercade is there's no assembly. For those who have purchased Arcade1ups before, you know you have to put it all together. A Countercade, not a lot we got to do. There is a little bit, and I'll get to a little trick on removing some of the plastic film, but you're going to get your instruction manual and your power cord. You will have some of that styrofoam left over. You know that styrofoam just makes a mess, but guys, I mean, you can just see it's totally assembled. The only thing we got to do is take the film off of the deck protector and the monitor. And a shot of how the arcade does sit in there, the styrofoam on the bottom and on the top. Pretty good sized box. You can see the Countercade is outside of here. We'll switch positions and get right to it. Believe it or not, this is not my first time I've had the Marvel Superheroes Countercade. I actually sold it when I was condensing, buying more of the 3/4 scale, running out of room. But you know, when deals come, I mean, it's really hard to pass these up, especially when you see them in a store. Something I did notice though, that I didn't remember doing this the first time I had this, but there is a little film here, and it just peels right off of the marquee. I actually thought there was something wrong with the marquee because this was kind of bent, but it is a sharp looking marquee. Next is removing that film over the control panel, and the issue here is you're gonna see these screws, and you might have to loosen them up if there's any plastic left underneath them, kind of like that. I'll show you what to do, but this will just peel off. Just be careful not to rip any of your controls out. You don't want to wreck anything, but for the most part it will just peel right off of there. And we do have a couple of spots. We got some plastic here and right across from there. So the only thing you're really going to need is a Phillips head screwdriver, and you're just going to loosen this up just enough that plastic will just peel right out of there. And once that plastic is off, you do get a better look at that artwork. And one of my favorite is Thanos. I can never identify who this is. I always think it's Wolverine. I'm not sure, But it is cool seeing that comic strip, and it's identical to that actual Marvel Superheroes arcade. And you get the 6 buttons. The controls, they do feel tight. You gotta wonder how long this has actually been sitting. I think it's from 2021. It's sitting in a warehouse for years. Finally given these deals, I mean, just a perfect time to pick this up. And while we have our screwdriver, we did loosen some of these screws. You do notice that right here, there's gonna be some excess left. You can see the screw here, a screw here. There's actually 2 more screws right underneath this control deck. Now sometimes you can peel this off, there won't be anything left. We'll see if we can do it. Otherwise, we're gonna have to loosen up the control deck to get that plastic, which we're gonna do. I wanna show everybody how I do this when I get a Countercade. The only way to get through here is actually loosening up the screw on both sides of the Countercade, and this will pull back and we'll be able to get in there and clean this up. Well, it's been so long since I purchased a Countercade. It's not just taking out the screw on both sides, actually the 4 screws on the top. Once you do that, then this will just lift right off of here and we can get inside and peel back that plastic. You can see the screw there and the screw on the bottom. Have a nice clean look. Let's put the screws right back in the left and the right side once you get this all cleaned up. And then the 4 holding down that control deck, just don't go too tight. You don't want to crack that plexi. And just unloosen the top 2 screws, and once you get that plastic, just tighten both and strip this right off. And if you do have a little bit of plastic, you see there is a little bit hanging from underneath that marquee. We're going to try something. We're just going to loosen up the top 2 screws, pull this up a little bit and see if we can tear that out. Once you loosen up both screws, this is a little loose and you can just see this will just peel right off. Now you do have an option. You can plug in a USB controller. If you're playing with someone and you want to have more space here so you're not like neck to neck, it is comfortable, but you will be using a controller versus the joystick and buttons. And on the player 1 side, there is a headphone jack. You could plug in your headphones instead of listening to the speakers, which is actually right on the bottom of the cabinet. Great artwork of Thanos on both sides, and on the back you do have your model number, your serial number, and the plug that goes right into the wall. We'll fire this up for the first time. Marquee lights up. It's loading. It's a good sign because we ripped everything off before actually turning it on. We're in luck, guys. It does work. You can control the volume. It will go all the way to 15. And we'll see how loud that is. Marvel Superheroes, The Punisher. This is my favorite game. X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and Marvel vs. Capcom. Start with the headline game, Marvel Superheroes. Level 15 isn't loud. Not super loud. It is 1 speaker, but I guess there's other ways if you really want to crank it. It's fine for me, but this is the sound completely cranked. And just to note, it is shooting right underneath. And if you're done with one game, just hold down player 1 for a second. You'll get prompted with resume back, reset game, or quit. We're going to quit.
Destiny awaits.
And go right back to the main menu. Get the Punisher. And just a reminder, there's only 2 ways to pick up the Punisher. Most affordable way, Marvel Superheroes Countercade. Or you can buy the head-to-head cocktail cabinet. It does have the Punisher on there, the Marvel vs. Capcom. But this works out great. And you can say, hey, the screen's not big enough. I'm going to tell you something. When you're playing, and you're staring right here, you're not going to see anything else. You're going to watch this screen, and it's going to seem fine. You know, for the half an hour that it takes to run through this game, which is actually a 2-player game, to be the Punisher or Nick Fury, it's a great beat 'em up. It is 2-player. You can be the Punisher and Nick Fury, and you can catch Nick Fury with that cigar. And I did want to note that there is no bad viewing angle on this monitor. It's a BO8. It's the best on earth. You're not going to see anything. If you're standing on either side of the cabinet, it's going to be clear. X-Men versus Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom are the last 2 games. I mean, you can just see how good this picture is.
X-Men versus Street Fighter!
And a lot of people's favorite game is Marvel vs. Capcom. Actually, I played this before I got my Marvel vs. Capcom 2 cabinet. Got used to playing this, and that's what kind of got me into picking up Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It's a great game. A lot of different players. I mean, if you're a huge Marvel fan, if you're a huge Capcom fighter, Street Fighter 2 fan, this is a perfect cabinet. At a great price. I mean, again, I got it for $100. And this is a game you could play a lot, and it does play great. You're going to look at the controls, and it does give you some of the moves. You have the punches on top and the kicks on the bottom. It just takes practice. But I have nothing but good things to say about this Countercade. I mean, guys, this is the second time I've picked this up. And it's worth the money. Especially for the Punisher. Now, my only knock is the volume. I just wish it was a little bit louder. At the highest setting of 15, going down midway at 8. I mean, you can tell the difference. But going right back to 15, I mean, it's not loud. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Well worth it, guys, just for the Punisher right here. Punisher and Nick Fury doesn't get any better than this.